you have to hit that 9 every single time. Because like we were talking about this earlier, like you can't fix your stroke until you're exhausted and you're under pressure and your fly is dying and you're like drowning. Yeah. Because if you're not at that point, there's nothing like, yeah, I can do 9 strokes when I'm like fresh and just got in the pool. Yeah. But like when you're at the end of a 3,000 yard set and you've been doing fly, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like you have to still be able to hold the 9 strokes. Yeah. Because that's what the 2 fly is. Yeah.
All right, hello everyone. We are back with another episode today. Today for the first time we have a college swimmer. We have Anna Kate here with us today.
Yes, thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for your time here. And this is my first time in interviewing a swimmer.
Well, Coach Natalie was a college swimmer.
Well, for a long time, but you are still, a college swimmer. No?
I graduated.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
So, what school did you go to?
I went to Ouachita Baptist University in Arkadelphia, Arkansas.
So
Division 2.
Oh, so that's what I'm about to ask, Division 2. So how is that separate? Because again, I didn't have that experience here, so that's why I need you guys here to tell me about how many division do the college system have?
Well, there's 3. So Division 1's the best, then Division 2, and then Division 3. Okay. And then you have NAIA. Okay. And so, which is even lower. But Division 3 doesn't offer scholarships for athletics, and neither does Ivy League. So you can't get athletic scholarships in the Ivy League. But Division 1, Division 2 you can, and NAIA depending on the school.
So when they separate the division like that, does Division 1 compete with Division 2 school, or you just go to the same level?
Yeah, you mostly compete with your same level, especially for like NCAAs. Okay. You have like NCAA Division 1, NCAA Division 2, Division 3. But like, so I swim at Ouachita, which is a Division 2 school in Arkansas, but we would have an all Arkansas invite at the beginning of the season. Yeah. And we would swim against all the schools in Arkansas, and they were all different. Like we were D2, the University of Arkansas in Fayetteville is Division 1. They would come. University of Arkansas, Little Rock, also Division 1, they were there. But then you had Henderson, which was our division. And a few others. So we would like swim like, but that was like kind of preseason or like really early in the season. So it wasn't like your championship meets or your conference meets where you're swimming like teams in your conference. Okay. So it was an invite. Yeah.
So then Coach Jenny, when she talked to me about the scholarship, like you said, right? There are, a little bit half or like some scholarship or some like full scholarship. So how do you get that difference?
It really depends on how fast you are. Okay. So like I went for a recruiting trip at one school, not the school I ended up going to, but I was like in the coach's office like having our meeting, and he handed me the nationals times, like the NCAA qualifying times. And he was like, this is what we're looking for. And no one on their team had those times. So I was just kind of like, that's a crazy high standard for you to have when no one on your team like currently swims those times. And so he made me a pretty low offer. And so it mostly depends though, like on your time. So especially like I started recruiting pretty early. And so like my junior year, I started recruiting like Jan 1, like January 1 hit, and I was immediately like emailing coaches, like putting myself out there. And it's like when they have their standards really high like that, they are hoping that like fast swimmers will come in, but it's like the longer they wait, the more like, I guess their standards kind of lower. And so they're like willing to take slower swimmers, I guess. But the school I ended up attending, I got a pretty decent scholarship, and my times were like pretty, like right in the middle, maybe on the upper end, but
then when they put out the standard like that, I would think like as a swimmer that like the fastest swimmer gonna want to look at like a group that they can actually train with.
Yes. Yeah, because that was the like gag. Like that's the silly thing about it is like that team, like they had like 1 or 2 kids that went to nationals, but it wasn't like their whole team was national swimmers. And if you have someone that's like making D2 nationals freshman year, they're probably going to like go to the transfer portal and go D1.
Right.
Because why would you stay in a team where you're better than everybody?
Right. And then again, like when we see a lot of like, coaches and stuff like that dropping names left and right, I always think that, all right, one coach doesn't make Olympians.
No.
It's a whole system. It's a whole belief.
Yes.
Like the whole team work together.
Yeah.
Right. So, if you want to go far, you need to pick a actual system that can work with you.
And I think it also depends on what your goals are.
Right.
Because I think like for me, I'm 5 feet tall. I was never like, I'm gonna go pro with this, or like I'm gonna make Olympic. Like I know myself and what my like swimming capacity and athletic capacity is. So I knew like I'm doing this to pay for school. Like that was my goal, was like I need this education. Right. So I think it also depends on that, because like for Division II, I feel like it's a little bit, I'm biased obviously, but I feel like it's a little bit more balanced between academics and athletics, where they really like, they care a lot about your grades, and it's a little bit more flexible as far as like, there were students that were like towards the end, my senior year, that were like studying for MCAT, stuff like that they just swam less. But it's like at that point, like most Division II swimmers, the focus is on their academic career as opposed to athletics. So it definitely depends on, like what your goal is.
Interesting. So when you make your decision of like going to your school, did you feel like, oof, you make it? Like now it's time to, pay off all those years of, training and all of that?
Yeah, I remember my first practice in college, like it's like seared in my mind, because I remember like, well, I'm also just dramatic, but I remember like getting the cap and like putting it on, and like I made my friend take a picture of me in front of my locker. Like I was like, I've made it. Like this is what I wanted. And like my dad is like a big influence in my life, and he always talked about how he wanted to play like college football. But I'm 5 foot, my dad's 5'4". Like he was never like, love him, he was never gonna play college like anything. And so for me, it was kind of like, I'm fulfilling this dream, like for me, but like for him and for like all the like other people, like I'm like, it's not again, like I was going big time or like whatever, but like to get the cap and to like be on scholarship, be on the conference team, like all of that meant a lot to me. And I remember my first practice, like jumping in, and I remember like smiling and like water going through my teeth, because I was like so smiling every single stroke, because I was just so excited that I was like, I like finally made it. Like this is what I worked really hard for, what I wanted, and like we're here. And I was just like grinning so big the whole first practice.
That's great. That's what I need you to tell, like, all the high school kids right now, because like 13 and 14, they just don't know where to go.
And I think it is like, there are kids who I think it's kind of like an all or nothing mindset. Like where they're like, well, if I'm not going to make Olympic trials, like why should I try? Or like, oh, I'm not going to win district. Like I was homeschooled. I didn't do high school swimming at all. So like I never went to district, and I never went to state. Like none of that was ever a factor for me. And so for me, like it was just a very personal thing. And I think that's the like fun thing about swimming, is that it is such an individual sport. So you can get out of it what you want, and like if you're just trying to pay for college, like pay for college, And so I don't know, like I think it is just like you have to want that. And really be like, this is what I want.
And a reasonable and a realistic goal.
Yes. Yeah. Because, well, and the thing is, like, when I was in Gold Group, I was one of the only people in the group that went D2. Almost everyone else the other people in my class went D1, and then a lot of people right before me also were D1 SEC swimmers. So I have to be realistic that I'm like, I've trained with these people, but I'm not the one leading the lane and making A interval. Like, you do have to be realistic with yourself, but it doesn't mean that like your swimming career is over just because you're not the fastest person. And I think that's a big misconception, especially among parents, where they're like, well, if my kid isn't gonna, be Olympic trials, what's the point? And it's like, not everybody's going to.
So was there anyone influence those thoughts to you, or it's just like you realize yourself after all the years of, experience?
I think it was a little bit of both. One, like whenever I first like got to where I could go to silver, my mom didn't want to make the time commitment. It wasn't me, it was her. My mom was like, I'm not driving you to practice that many times and staying. Like my mom was like, you can go to training group. And so I was in training group for a really long time, and I was mad at her. I was like, how dare you? Like you're stealing my thunder, all this stuff. But I think that in a way, it was like kind of helpful, because it kind of put it in perspective for me that I was like, this isn't everything. like, as much as I care about swimming, like, I can be in training group and work really hard and try to be the fastest. I was the fastest kid in training group until Adriel and his brother joined, and they were in training group not even a full year, because Adriel obviously was so fast. They were like, you gotta get to gold. But like, I was like, well, I'm just gonna be like the best that I can be in training group. And I think that kind of helped my mindset, because I wasn't like, oh my gosh, like swimming is my life, swimming is everything. So I think that helped, like, A, I didn't get burnt out, but B, I felt like I want this, and I knew I still wanted it even when I wasn't at the highest level I could be.
Yeah.
Because I had the opportunity to go to bronze and go to silver, but my mom's the one who said no.
And again, you said that, like, you do the best yourself right there, to just keep on improving, and wait for your time to shine.
Right. So and Coach John also played a big factor, because I remember, like, once I did move up to gold, and you like make that commitment, like I was telling, I had coffee with Coach Ann the other day, and I was telling her that, like, I remember when I first got to gold, I went on the Peak website, and it was like 95% attendance is required for gold. And I remember like sitting my mom down and being like, Mom, like, you have to take me to practice, because before you can drive. And I was like, I have to be there 90%. Like, I remember being like, Mom, like, I have to be there 90% of the time. I also remember my first gold practice. Coach Juan was the coach. I remember it was either gold or silver, but my first like coming out of training group into the like big group, whatever. And I remember I arrived, like, practice started at, like, let's say it was like at 5:30, and I got there at 5:30.
Oh.
I got there at 5:30, because that's what I did with training group. Practice started at 5:30, I would get there at 5:30. We'd get in the water by like 5:40.
Right.
And I remember getting there and everyone was already in the pool. Oh. And after that day, I was like, Mom, like,
we need to change this.
Yeah, I was like, well, we have to be there at 5. Because I was like, everybody is like, cap and goggles on, Coach Juan's already set the warm-up, and everybody's in the pool by 5:30. And I remember that was like, for me, I was like, the same thing with the attendance, where I was like, we just have to raise the bar. Like, I was like, we're gonna do this. Like, I can be the shortest person there or the slowest person there, but like, I'm not gonna be the late person. And I'm not gonna be the person that doesn't show up to practice. And that, I think, was a big mindset shift. And Coach John was the one that I remember him telling me, like, you can swim in college. And I remember him saying that to me, and saying, like, if there's someone that wants to swim in college, like, there's a place for you. If you want it, like, there's room.
Right.
And I mean, there's D3 swimmers that like don't get paid athletic scholarships, but a lot of times they'll compensate with academic scholarships, or make it work for you so that it's worth it. And they may not be the fastest, but it's like, if you want to swim in college, like, you can. If that's what you want,
right,
you can do it.
And then again, you have to like want it yourself.
Yes. Yeah.
No one can do it for you.
Yes.
Besides yourself.
That's a big thing. Coach John used to preach that to us too. I like kept a lot of stuff from Coach John that I apply like in my everyday life.
That's every coach though.
Because
every coach is gonna tell you that.
It is. I think because I had John the longest. But one of the things he would always tell us was intrinsic motivation. And I remember him saying that, and that like has stuck with me like through like job, school, whatever, where I'm like, I remember him saying like, I can't want it more than you.
Right.
And I remember thinking like, yeah, like I remember like it just clicked for me, and I was like, yeah, you can, like the coach can write all the perfect sets and make everything perfect so that if you follow this exact training plan, like things are gonna go well for you. But like if you don't care, it doesn't matter.
And then you in both situations as well, right? You are swimming, and then you coaches the little kids for a little bit. You know how it feels. The coaches, what can we do? We can yell at them, we can push them. That's so much. But then at the end of the day, like how much effort do they put in there?
Right. Yes.
The result's gonna show.
Yes.
So yeah, that's the problem. Yeah. Like now, a lot of swimmers or kids, they don't want to get hurt in practice. Mm-hmm. That's the problem. As soon as like it start getting difficult, it's hard, it's just gonna crumble.
Yeah.
They can't push through it.
Right.
And then track back to your years of training. So who was your coach during the training group? And
Coach Caitlin.
Oh, Coach Caitlin.
Coach Caitlin.
That's great. Yeah.
Coach Caitlin, the GOAT.
Yeah, she really spent time with training group and making you guys feel welcome, and putting your work and all of that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have her. I will have her on the next few episodes, and I already have the schedule, so that's great. I'm looking for that as well.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah, so track back more into that. So how did you learn how to swim?
took lessons at Coach Juan's swim school. It was in a strip center by my house originally. They had this pool. It's off of, I think, well, now I can't remember the name of the street, but...
It's in Pearland?
It's in Pearland.
Oh.
It was like a little strip center, and there was a little pool, and they had swim lessons, so my parents took me there. And Coach Juan was the one that, like, ran, it was his swim school, if I'm remembering correctly. And so I learned to swim there. My mom took all me and my siblings there. But after you, like, age out, Coach Juan, I remember he came up to my parents. I'm sure he did. I'm sure I wasn't special. I'm sure they did this with kids that, like, kept going, that they were like, oh, you should try out for a team. But he, like, came up and was like, you know, and I remember my tryout. I was in first grade, and it was at Manville High School, and I did my tryout there. But, yeah, they were like, does she want to be on the team? And I remember being like, yeah, I want to be on the team. So I started with Peak in first grade, and I finished through high school with Peak. So
the whole...
Very long time. Wow. Yeah.
See, like, I never really coached you, but then later on we have chance to do swim lessons and you know junior coaches together.
Yes.
So that was great. So how do you feel when you do that transition from swimming to try to explain it to little kids?
Yeah.
It's a whole different world.
Yeah, no, it's a different world. I think I, like, cannot teach lessons anymore. I think I just realized, like, I don't have the patience.
Right.
Like, I don't have the patience. So I really enjoyed, I got to teach Coach Bronze for a little while when I was a junior coach. I really liked that. Right. I think I like the, like, middle school age the best. So
like 12, 13, 14?
Yeah. Yeah. But, like, little kids, it's kind of just torturous, I think.
I have kind of the same problem, and I think it's because we've been training at like a more intense and at a speed for so long.
Yeah.
So it's just in our mind, right? And then when little kids, they need longer, time to process and get to know the skills.
Right.
We get frustrated.
Yes. And I think it's hard too, like, with lessons specifically, I think it's hard for me to be in the water and not be swimming.
Right.
Like, so many times I want to, like, sit the kid down and be like, watch this. Like, let me just show you.
Right.
But it's like, little kids don't learn that way.
Right, they don't watch you.
No.
You have to, like...
You sit them on the side, they're going to, like, fall over. Like, they're not paying attention, they're not...
Right.
Yeah, so I'm like, I think that was my issue. It's like, I want to be in the water, I want to be able to, like... If I'm in the water, I want to swim. So, I think that was hard. That's
one thing I always tell the junior coaches or, like, new... instructor that you have to change your voice. You can't use your swimmer language.
Yes.
You have to speak their language.
Yes.
Like, literally slow it down, be silly and whatever. But you can't tell them to streamline.
Right. Yeah.
Or, or any other thing,
Yeah.
And repeat, because a lot of time, like, we start the season 3 months in, boom, holiday season.
Right.
And everyone is out for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, coming back, all right, season start over.
Right.
So.
Yeah.
Not like what we do.
No.
So how long do you feel like, all right, I'm off for these many days, and then when I come back, I will feel like I don't know how to swim. For me, it's like 3 days, and I can't catch the water anymore when I come back.
Yeah. Yeah, honestly, I think it was probably like 2 days for me. That, like, if I took 2 days off, I just felt like awful in the water. And it normally, like, especially like when we were in season, like with Peak or in college, like, it took 1 or 2 practices to get back in. And I was like, okay, we're fine now. Yeah. But yeah, longer than that, like, whenever we would have our week off in August, I would come back and I'd be like, I don't even know that I, like, can swim freestyle anymore.
Well, that's why when we come back normally the first 2 weeks, we mostly kick, we get the drills in and get the stroke back. Yeah. And for us, coaches that, been here for the long term, those weeks are great.
Yeah. Because
we can actually fix the bad habit in the past season because they forget everything. So everyone's stroke look new.
Yes.
And we just try to fix it there and then keep on going with the season.
Yes.
Yeah, but other than that time, it's really difficult to fix it when you guys already have your stroke built in.
Yeah.
Yeah. So for your college, how many practice you have a week for your school?
Oh my gosh.
Is it like 9? I've done 9 in the past.
Yeah, it was about 9, sometimes 10. But that's counting weight sessions too.
So weight session, is that count one practice or is it just a part of a practice?
For the most part, it was one practice. Okay. So we would do weights on Tuesdays and Thursdays in the morning at 5:15 a.m. It was my literal nightmare. But we would do it for an hour in the morning, and then we'd swim in the afternoon. And then that was my freshman year. My second year, we would do an hour of weights and an hour of swimming all in one practice. And that was brutal. I didn't like that.
Well, I like that better, to be honest. Yes, I do. Because back then I do 3 mornings and then Saturday morning, which is 4. And then the 3 morning is like, again, 5 in the morning and then 5 evenings.
Yeah.
So we off Saturday and Sunday, but then we meet and whatnot.
Right. We would swim Saturday mornings.
But I do that when I'm, 13, 14.
Yeah.
Middle school.
Right. Yeah, doing doubles, I think that was like the biggest thing that I was thankful to have been in silver and gold. Like, I don't think it would just be really hard to have gone like from training group to college, like, because you do doubles basically the whole season.
Right.
And I think that was the hardest thing. Like, I remember being in high school and having to do doubles over the summer in silver and gold and being like, this is terrible. Like, I hate doubles. And like, when I got to college, I was so thankful because that like becomes your new normal. And then you're also like taking classes. Like in the summer, you're just like going home and going back to sleep, like eating and sleeping. But like then when you're in college, you're like, oh, now I have to like practice, shower and go to class.
And then practice.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. So I think that definitely like I felt well prepared. And then maybe, as much as you can be, but yeah.
Yeah, dragging yourself up in the morning do be a difficult task. I experienced that. But then again, that bring Saturday practice up to be my favorite of all time practice.
Really?
Yes. We start later. We don't start at 5. We start at like 7:30. We're done at around 9:30, and then brunch.
Yeah.
Those are the best.
Those are good practices. I really liked when we did have the 5 a.m. practices in college. One of my semesters, I didn't have class until after lunch. My first class was at 1. So I would go to practice in the morning. I'd go to the dining hall. I'd eat. Come back and I'd just sleep until I had class again and then go to class and practice. So that was kind of nice. It felt like I was living 2 days in one day because I would just go back to sleep and wake up and be like, oh, here we are, like, good morning. And it's like, I've already been to practice and eaten today, but it didn't feel like it. So.
That's great. So, so do you realize that how much, rest meaning for you when you do those doubles?
Yes.
Just a quick power 30-minute nap is everything.
Yes. Yeah. Any nap. I became a nap-aholic a little bit. My roommate and I never lived with swimmers, which I think honestly was a good setup for me. I lived with like friends that were like in my program or like whatever, but I never lived with swimmers. And I think that ended up working out well for me because sometimes swim team like can be a little drama. And you're just with those people for at least 20 hours a week.
Right.
Because 20 hours is like the max you can train. But then also like all the swimmers would eat together in the cafeteria. And we would all like, if we're traveling, you're together in the bus with them. So like, I think after a while I was like, I need to just like be able to go back to my room and not see any of you guys. And I have like really close friends in swimming. It's not that they weren't my friends, but I think it was just like a good separation for me. Right. But all that to say, my roommate and I, we had this little like, I printed it out and we had paper clips and it was like, her name was Emily. It was like Anna Kate Emily. And then it was like asleep or awake. And we'd switch the paper clip because I would be napping and she'd try to invite me to like go get coffee or go study or whatever. And I would be like, I'm a sleep girl. Like, don't wake me up. Don't knock on my door. Like if I'm out, I'm out. Like, do not wake me up. So that became a really big like boundary of mine though, where I was like, if I'm asleep, like, unless the dorm is on fire, do not come in there. Like, do not wake me up.
Yeah, so that's why, like, swimming and, college professional swimming is not just, like, doing a sport. It's a whole lifestyle.
Yeah.
Because, like, 3-4 hours a day and 7 days a week, it's nonstop.
Yeah.
So it's difficult.
It is.
Yeah, so were there, any time during that, 15 plus years, do you feel that, I want to step away?
Oh, yeah. Towards the end of... So, yeah, when my mom first put me in training group, I was really mad. And I was, like, really pissed at her that I didn't get to go to silver and bronze. But then towards the end of my, like, training group... That was, like, in middle school was when I was in training group. But towards the end, I kept telling my mom, I was like, I want to quit. I don't want to do swimming anymore. Like, I hate it. And my mom would make me these passes. She, like, made these little cards. And my sister was in gymnastics at the time. And my sister, poor thing, was practicing, like, 4 hours a night. So, like, me and my 2-hour practice was really nothing. Like, my sister was there 4 hours a night. And my sister and I both got these little cards. And my mom, it was like a get out of practice card. But we only had 2 for the month.
Okay.
So she was like, my mom would tell us, you can miss 2 practices this month. And she gave us those cards. I don't think I ever used the card. Because I think, like, once she put it to us in that way where she was like, fine. Like, she was like, because we've already paid. You're not, like, that, it was more of a money thing. She was like, we paid for the season. Like, you're not getting out of this. So she was like, you need to finish the season. Like, you need to get through this. And so she was like, you can miss 2 practices a month. But once it was like that, I wanted to save my 2 practice skips. But then it would get to the end of the month and I would never use them.
Right.
And I think, like, that was the only time that I remember, like, being like, can I please quit? Can I please quit? And I remember her giving us those cards and me being like, it made me feel like I had control, but really it kind of tricked me into staying into it. Where I was like, okay, I guess, like, because I wanted to save them, I didn't want to use them. But then, yeah, by the end of the month, I would be like, well, I never used my card.
So parents out there, you hear that? Do that to your child.
My sister definitely, she used her cards every month. And she ended up quitting gymnastics after the season. It didn't work out for her. But for me, I was like, no, I wanted to save them. And then I just would never use them, and it ended up working out. So.
That also might work for, like, school as well, I think, right?
Yeah, maybe.
Anything.
Yeah.
You know.
So.
Oh, I will keep that in mind for my kids in the future.
Yeah.
When we get there, that's great. That's a great idea.
Yeah.
So then, so after that, what happened? What keep on coming back besides moving up to silver and gold?
Well, I had a lot of good friends in training group. So I think that was a big thing. One of my friends was Darby. She ended up actually running track at the University of Houston. She was a crazy fast runner. But she swam with me in training group for a long time, and she and I were close. I had a couple other friends. There was a girl named Denise that I was close with. And then also Coach Caitlin. Like, we would have, like, joke time. Like, story time, like, we did, like, she was really good, I feel like, at connecting with us on a personal level, where for those of us that were in training group, some of us were there because our parents were making us, which is the case in every group, but, or then some of us were there because, we wanted to swim, but our parents were like, this is what we can do. And so I think she was good about, like, kind of making sure that all of the people in the group, the workouts were able to meet everyone's level.
Right, she met you where you at for sure.
Yes, but then that also, like, on a personal level, like, she got to know us. She would tell stories from, like, she was a teacher. She would tell stories from her classroom or things that would happen. We would talk with her, and I think, like, it got to the point where I remember, like, because I didn't want my mom to win, quote unquote, like, I would be like, Mom, like, I really want to quit, and I remember, like, having a blast at practice. And then getting in the car and being like, it was awful. Like, telling my mom, like, no, I hated it. Like, I still want to quit. And my mom being like, okay, well, you have to finish the season. And, like, it really was just, like, my stubbornness. But I was, like, having a great time. Like, I enjoyed it. So, I don't know. I don't know what changed, really. But I think also, like, in the back of my mind, just being a stubborn person, I was like, well, I'm not going to quit. Like, I wanted to, but I was like, but I'm not.
So when did you realize that, hey, I actually have a shot here to make it to college? What, like, how fast were you, or what meet, or
what's funny, Coach Chuck? I think it was pure delusion. Because, like, I never, like, when I was in an age group swimmer, I was not that fast. Like, I never went to tags. I never caught, like, and for me, like, as an age group swimmer, it was just about having fun. I didn't really care about my times. Like, I just wanted to be with my friends and in the water. Like, there's a picture of me, like, at a meet, and me and my friends were laying on an air mattress outside because our parents had brought it for us, and we're, like, wearing these matching robes. Like, it was really, like, just for silly, funny, haha time. Like, it was never serious. And then I think once they were like, oh, you can move to bronze, I was like, wait, I can move to bronze? And then my mom made me a training group, and I was like, kind of, like, scheming in the back of my mind. But I think really, like, I never had, like, a stand-on. I didn't make sectionals until my senior year. it was not giving fast. It was not giving like this was going places.
So you just your way around.
Yes. And I really think that it was the culture of the team at the time that being in gold and silver, like those kids did want it and they were fast enough. And I remember like crying, like I wanted to go to tags. I remember being upset, like I wanted to go to sectionals. Like it wasn't that I didn't want it, but I think that it was kind of like, it just felt like to me like that was just the natural next step. Like it was like you swim on a club and then you swim in college. And so I think once I realized like, oh, I don't have to have sectionals to do this, or I don't have to be this fast.
It's
like
a relief.
It was a relief, and I was like, oh, I really can. Like I can do this if I want to, even if I'm not the fastest person in the pool. And I think that made me want to work harder to where like by my senior year I was like, I'm going to go to sectionals like if it kills me. Like I had one qualifying time. I went for one day, swam the 2 fly, and that was it. But like that, it made the sectionals experience that much more like significant for me because I was like, my mom drove me all the way out to College Station for one race. But like just to be there, to be in the environment, like that meant a lot to me, and it felt like I worked really hard to get here because I wasn't the person that made it every single event.
Wow. The more I talk with you, the more I realize how powerful is, training group and all of the group that doesn't, require that much commitment. That's what we found the greatness so far.
Yeah, and I think it's less about the requirements of the group and more about how much you're willing to put in.
Right, and those are good transition.
Yeah.
From my point of view, right? Like from swim lessons, summer league, outside program coming in, right? Like instead of right into a more intense and big commitment time group, experience it a little bit, get a little taste of it here, get a little taste of training group, and then when you I'm pretty good at this, I want to move on, I want to commit more, that's when you step in and this is a smoother transition.
Right. And I think it makes you want it more. It makes me think of like, I love watching those videos of like NFL players when they're not on scholarship and then it's like a team meeting. Do you know what I'm talking about? And the coach is like, you're on scholarship, and everyone's like, and like screaming and celebrating. And like, I think that's kind of what it is to like go D2 or be in training group or like kind of take the long way around. Is you realize like how badly you actually want it. If you want it, I mean, maybe you don't, but if you want it at all, you realize how badly you want it. And then when it happens, it's like that much more satisfying because you went the long way. And so like, I mean, and I don't say that to discredit anybody's experience that like went straight through bronze, silver, gold, because I had teammates that did that and like had Olympic trials and whatever. But I think for me, in my own personal experience, that made it so much more worthwhile because I was like, looking back on like my journey and my path, I was like, this wasn't necessarily like the typical thing, but I got where I wanted to go. So
yeah, and then again, like you at the end of the day, still succeed and feel satisfied about the path that been there.
Yes.
That's the most important thing because again, swimming, you just when you stuck in the aquatic world, it's gonna look back around to you at a certain point. Like you just take a break and then it's gonna look back to you at some point.
It does, yeah.
So like swim lessons, swimmers, college swimmers. So now where are you at? What do you think?
Oh my gosh. Well, okay, so Coach Chuck asked me to be on this podcast because he saw me at the Nat. I was swimming. But I graduated in May of 2023 from college. My last conference was that February 2023. And after conference, I was like, bye. Like, I was like, I'm never touching the water again. Like, that's it from me. And I didn't swim for like a year and a half. And I decided I was a runner. I ran immediately I ran like a 5K that they did on my campus. And then I trained and ran 2 half marathons. I was like, because I still have that like competitive, like I need to race and I need to train and I need to do this. Which was, it was fun, but it was also just like exhausting. And then I kind of just took time where like I wasn't really doing anything. Like I would go to the gym if I felt like it. I would go for a walk, like do kind of just like laying low. And I think that was good for me as far as like kind of resetting the mindset where like once you've done swimming or any sport really at that high of a level, it's hard then to be like, let me go to the gym for an hour or 45 minutes. Because to me, then I'm like, the standard for a workout is like 2 hours, insane intensity, like max heart rate. Like, so to just go and like go for a jog for 30 minutes or go to the weight room. Like, it felt so, like, insignificant.
Because you swim, 7K in 2 hours, and you have, 10, 15-second rest on the wall, interval rolling.
Yes. Yeah. So you're, like, used to this level of intensity, and I think I kind of had to, like, unlearn that. But now I'm like, so I've run these 2 half marathons. I'm realizing I have bad joints, like bad knees. Yeah. And so I've had to get back in the pool.
Oh, that's swimmer problems.
Yeah, truly swimmer problems. And I think now I'm enjoying it more than ever because the pressure's off.
Yeah.
And I think, like, there's satisfaction in, like the other day I was swimming butterfly and I was like, Coach Chuck better not look out over here because my butterfly is literally horrific now. But, like, even small things where I'm like, my stroke count is still 9 for butterfly.
Yes.
And so that is still satisfying to me that I'm like, I might not be able to swim a 210, 200 fly, but I'm like, but my technique is there and I can still do 9 strokes.
Yes.
I can still go underwater to 15. Like, there's little things that I'm like, this is still satisfying. And it becomes more fun. Where I'm like, I'm enjoying this. And it's not as much like, let me make these intervals or let me work this hard. Like, it's really just, it's just pure fun.
Yes. That was me. I was in Vietnam. I'm done competitive swimming at 17 when I got injured. And then, 2 years, and then I moved over to the US at like 19, early 20. I sit there guarding. You know, when you're around water, when you're around fast swimmer, and like you were there, right?
Yes.
So, and then when we swim for a long time, when we look at swimmer, we know how fast they are in the water. And I can hang with these guys.
Right.
And the urge to join them was so high back then. Yeah. Yeah, but like it was the group like Adrios and Belinas back in the day. Right. It was great. I wanted to swim with them, but I was a little too old back then. They were high school. I'm 20, so and there's a lot to do with it, and settle in my new life and stuff like that. But then get into coaching, and I feel great doing that as well. Yeah. So that was good. So what do you think, master?
I don't know. You know what's really holding me back from masters is the cost.
Oh, yeah.
Like, first of all, thank you parents. Thank you all swim parents because, like, I don't think I realized how expensive swimming was until, like, now that I'm an adult. And I, looked into joining a master's team and I was like, you want how much from me a month? Like, I was like, that's crazy. That's crazy. So maybe when I get like a big girl job, I'll do masters. But like for now, I'm at Baylor now doing a master's degree, and they have a pool in our rec center. We get in for free, and I have a friend that I met there just because she had a Speedo backpack. And so I went up to her.
You know exactly who you're talking to.
And so I went up to her and I was like, oh, I saw your Speedo backpack. Like, did you swim? And she was like, yeah. And she's also a master's student. She swam at Austin College. And so, which I think is Division III. But she's great. She's a pretty good swimmer. She's fast, And so she and I swim together. And so I also think the like cool thing about the swimming community is like, I feel like it's like once you know that like pain, you're like locked in with anybody else who's experienced that. Yeah. And so like anybody that I've met that I'm like, oh, did you swim? Like you have that instant connection because you both know the like.
No, for sure though. I got paid to swim for majority of my life. So when I moved to the US, I look at the bills like,
I know. Yeah. I think that is hard too. Like that friend that from Austin College that she swims with me sometimes. Baylor has a like club team. They don't have an NCAA team, but they have a club team. And she's like, do you want to swim with the club team? Like, I'm thinking about joining. And she was like, it's $25 a semester. But I think like, which isn't terrible. Right. But I think like coming out of college where like you're saying, I'm like, I just got paid to swim. Like, I'm like, I don't want to give them money to do that. Right. Like, it just feels a little like, I don't know. I'm just like, I don't think I can do it. I don't think I can do it. So. Yeah.
It's hard to get out of that thought though, for sure.
It is. So
yeah. So we're gonna take a little break here, and then when we come back, we're gonna talk more about swimming.
A few moments later.
All right. So we back with the second half here, and so can you talk more about your recruiting time from high school into college? What did you have to do?
Well, I think the biggest thing is like. I remember on New Year's, my family, we always go to church on New Year's Eve, and we do like a whole like pray in the new year. And I remember like sitting there and thinking in my mind, like, this is the year that I have to get like figure out where I'm going to college.
Okay.
And like on January 1, we like stayed at church till midnight. We went home. I slept. I woke up that morning, got my computer. I went on college swimming, and which might be, I think it's Swim Cloud now. I don't know. But I went on that website, and I sent emails to tons of coaches. I drafted up an email template. I might still have it, I don't know. But I just like drafted up an email template where I was like,
this is my time.
Yeah, these are my times. Like, I'm interested in your program, like whatever else. And I had some of the older swimmers from Gold that kind of helped me develop my template. And then I was like, okay. And I just sent it to like anyone and everyone that I was interested in their school. Like even programs like D1 programs that I was like, I know I'm not fast enough. But I was like,
give it a shot.
Shoot my shot. Yeah. And so I like mass sent out the email to, again, like just tons of schools, tons of coaches. And then after that, it was just weeks of like filing through responses. Some people just didn't even respond. Some people would respond very politely and be like, sorry, like basically you're not fast enough, but like these are the same, like they never say that, but they'll just be like, these are the standards we're looking for, like at this time.
That's interesting. So those coaches, right, like starting not every season, they're just gonna have to sort to like thousands of email, I would assume.
Yeah.
Like some D1 team.
Right. Wow. Yeah. So, and I mean, yeah, like I said, I think, well, and especially like big D1 team, a lot of times they'll have like recruiting coordinators or people that are like on the team just to recruit.
And
so
they
like
already have like, you know, an idea of who they're looking for ahead of time.
Yeah, exactly. And so pretty quickly though, like you get responses back or whatever. And I remember like having to go through college swimming a second time and send like a second round of emails with like my standards lower, where I was like, okay, I'm just gonna look at like D2 schools this time, or just like, so that the first batch of emails I sent was like anybody and everybody, and the second batch I was like, okay, I'm gonna like, you know, really hone in on like D2 schools that I haven't contacted yet. And surprisingly, Ouachita, the school I ended up going to, they were one of my second round. Like the first round, I remember like clicking on the school and being like, I'm not going there. And not even emailing them the first round. And then the second round coming back and being like, okay. And this is funny, but like one of the first things I always looked at was social media. And seeing like, because I feel like you get a certain vibe, like obviously from the university's website, but also from like the athletic page. Yeah, whatever. But like, I think when you look at social media, it's a little bit more like real. Where like I feel like on their website or whatever, they make it feel a certain way or look a certain way, and then you kind of can look on social media and be like, is it really that way? You know, or like I would search up swimmers that were at that school like on their roster and like look at their social medias, and just kind of like feeling the vibe, like what is the vibe of the team culture, like the vibe of the coaches, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, Ouachita, I was just like not really interested because it was in Arkansas, so I was like, that's, I don't know, hillbilly country, like I'm good. But the more I like looked, I was like, they seem very like a family feel. Yeah, really real, like raw. And so I was like, okay. And I ended up emailing with them back and forth. And then shortly after that, I started doing my like recruiting visits. Okay. So I like sent all my first batch of emails January 1. I'm like sorting through emails in the spring. By the summer, I had started to like call coaches. Okay. So a lot of times like the coaches that you're kind of in conversation with, they're either gonna like send you an email back and be like, no, get away. Or they're gonna be like, yeah, I'd love to talk with you, like can we set up a phone call? And so I had like my coaches that I was like kind of talking with, and you kind of like get to know the coach, whatever. And like sometimes you'll have one or two phone calls depending. At least in my experience. And then sometimes like the first call will be with like an assistant coach. And then if they are still interested, then you'll have a second call with the head coach. And then after that, I started planning visits. And so my visits were kind of like end of the summer, my junior year, into the fall of my senior year. Mm-hmm. But I was determined to sign on signing day. Oh. So that was kind of like, I had given myself a deadline that I was like, I'm going to sign on signing day. I wanted to have like a big to-do because again, like I was homeschooled, so I didn't go to high school. But I was like, I want to have like a table and like sign and like do, and like I was like, if I'm going to do this, like we're going to do it. Yeah. So that was my deadline, was I think it was like November 12th or something was signing day. And so I was like, I have to know like by November 12th, like where I'm going, who I'm signing with, like I was determined. So at that point I had narrowed it down. I only went on 3 visits, like 3 recruiting trips. And they were really fun. Like, the recruiting trips themselves are like one of the most fun parts of the recruiting process.
So is it like a normal school orientation, or is it dedicated just for like the team?
Just for the team.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
So like the recruiting trips I went on, the first one I went on was in a small school. All of them were small, really small G2 schools. The first one was in Tennessee, and I flew there by myself. Like, my parents didn't go with me, and it was fun to like kind of travel alone. I was like just turned 18, and so I was like so excited. And like the coaches picked me up, and there was a couple other people that were also recruiting that weekend, but they like take you around the town, you stay in the dorms, they like show you the facilities, you get to watch a practice. Like, it was very like, they're trying to obviously like impress you and all that stuff. And then you have your meeting with the coach where they're kind of discussing like, this is what we can offer you or whatever else as far as like scholarships and that kind of thing. And so yeah, that was my recruiting trip in Tennessee. My second trip was another school in Arkansas, and that trip was really fun. We got to go on a boat out on like the river. They like took us out on a boat. So we were like, I have like a video still of like me doing like a front flip off the boat, and like we just had a fun, like it's very fun.
Yeah.
And you like get to like go and like hang out with the team. That was kind of a party school. So I ended up like, I had a lot of fun on the trip, but I was like, I'm not a partier. So I was like, I'm not doing this like long term. And so, anyways, and then Ouachita was actually my last visit, and while I was there, I was like, this is where I want to go. Like, I knew. And so it was kind of funny, like when I decided I wanted to go, we were sitting in the office with the head coach, and my mom was in that meeting with me. I don't remember why she had come, but whatever, my mom was with me. And so we were like kind of talking back and forth with the coach, and he was like, all right, well, just like let me know. And I was like, yeah, I think this is what I want to do. Like, this is the school for me. Like, I really, and he was like, okay, yeah, well, just like when you decide, like, let me know. And I was like, yeah, I was like, no, yeah, like, this is definitely, like, I think this is really what I want to do. But I guess because I kept saying, I think, that he was like, okay, well, when you decide. And my mom looks at him, and she was like, she's committing. And I was like, he was like, you are? And I was like, yeah, I am. And he was like, oh, awesome, like, great, like, let's, you know. And it was like, I, like, committed that day and whatever, but, like, it was so funny, like, the back and forth, I was like, yeah, I think this is really, and he was just like, okay, well, like, and I'm like, no, like, right now. But anyways, I, like, knew, I think, even before, like, I went on the other trips, but I, like, kind of knew in my, like, heart and in my mind that I was like, this is where I want to go. And, like, there was a lot more, like, I went on their homecoming weekend, and the school itself, like, even outside of the swim team, like, the school itself does a huge, like, homecoming event. Baylor has an event called Sing, and Ouachita has a similar thing. It's called Tiger Tunes, but it's basically, like, all the, like, school orgs and, like, sororities or fraternities, they put on, like, a show. And so it was fun. Like, we got to go to that show, and then it's a Baptist school. So, like, it's a religious school, but so they, like, we didn't drink or anything, but they have this big event after Tiger Tunes where everybody meets on the plaza, and they have, like, a DJ, and then they serve root beer. And so everybody's, like, walking around with, like, root beer, and it's, like, it's just kind of funny, like, of course, it's a Baptist school, but that was really fun. And, like, the whole swim team, like, that's kind of where I realized, like, the swim team, like, did everything together. Like, it wasn't like I was just with my host.
Like a small group.
Or just, the swim team, like, they all went, and we, like, watched Tiger Tunes. We, like, live streamed it, and then we all went to Muggin, which is what they call it, because in the old days, the root beer was served in mugs. Yeah. But anyway, so we all went to Muggin. We, like, got to, like, and that was just fun that I was, like, I'm having fun with the swim team, not at swim events. Yeah. And I think that's what made me feel most at home, because I was, like, if you can have fun with these people outside of practice, like, how much more fun is it going to be when you're, like, at meets and traveling and practicing? Yeah, so, yeah, that really sold it for me. And then, after I committed, then that trip was in October, and then signing day was in November, and I was, like,
So did you have to do any swimming during those visits, or just like there and just take a look?
No, yeah, they just go off your times. Some coaches will recruit, like, they'll show up to big meets. So, like, a lot of times, like, at sectionals or stuff like that, certain states, districts, you'll have, like, scouts. So, like, people will be there. But like I mentioned earlier, like, I went to the one sectionals my senior year, and that was after I'd already committed. And then I didn't really swim at any other big meets. So, like, it wasn't really, like, a scouting thing. But there are some coaches that do that. And I know my coaches did go to, like, sectionals and a couple of like sectionals in Arkansas and sectionals in Texas were the two big states they really like honed in on, but I wasn't there, so they wouldn't have seen me. So yeah, but they just go off your times. And then I made a YouTube channel when I was recruiting. It's down now. Like I took it off because it's so embarrassing. But I like had like a picture. I remember like I set up a sheet in my room and I had my sister take a picture of me with like my cap and goggles on, and I'm like, ooh. Like I'm like posing.
You said this I don't know. I can include it in this video.
No, it's so awful. Like literally it's terrible. And so my sister like took a picture and I like put that as my like profile, and I like kind of like if you like have you seen like football or like soccer recruiting and they like put like highlights.
Yeah.
So so I put a couple of videos on there with like some videos from like golf champs or like different stuff like that where I was like.
They probably stole a picture of you on peak Instagram. I can pull it up.
There might be.
Yeah,
no need to pull it up, please. That is so embarrassing. That is so embarrassing. I literally, I had no eyebrows because the chlorine burned my eyebrows off. So like all through high school, like I had no eyebrows. I don't know why they grew back in college, but they did. But like in high school, I had no eyebrows. Some of those pictures are horrid.
It's because of the gnat.
They're terrible.
Yeah, it's because of the gnat.
Yeah. So anyways, but yeah, probably is the gnat. The gnat was disgusting. But yeah, when I was in college, I didn't have that problem. My eyebrows grew back and they were fine. But all through high school, I had no eyebrows. So like all the pictures of me from high school, I look horrid. I look terrible. But yeah, I made like a YouTube channel and to like put like, cause like, I don't know if they ever looked at it. I don't know, but I think it just made me feel a little bit better. And because like, I think being like, again, shorter and also like not, like my times weren't like, oh my gosh, she's amazing. You know, like I think for me, it was like, I just want to like put out there on the internet that like, I have decent technique, like I can underwater to 15, like to kind of show some of those strengths that don't come through with your time.
Yeah.
Cause like I can look and see like, by the end of my career, I swim a 210, 200 fly. There can be someone else that swims a 210, 200 fly, but they don't underwater. You know, or whatever. Where it's like, there's room to like improve or there's room to grow or whatever it is. Like
we have kids win age group champs with side arm, open arm turns.
Really?
Yes. And like diving in, like two arm open.
Yeah. So it's like, at least like, I'm like, okay, I just want to like have visual evidence that like I have some level of technique behind me. So I don't know if it actually helped or not, but that was something I did was I made a YouTube channel.
Yeah. So after that, you know, the first few practice, like for sure the excitement's there, but like is it like totally more difficult than, you know, your other training before that?
I think like the first couple of practices, probably they're trying to like ease you in and not scare you. Yeah, but definitely like because of the way like college swimming is, we started swimming in September, like official practice. We had like captain's practices in like August, and then September we start training, and then October we called it Rocktober because that's like.
You build a foundation.
Yes, because then like October's the hardest month of training because then in December you have mid-season. So you kind of start tapering down by like end of November. So like October is the bulk of your like horrible training. And my freshman year, my conference lineup, Coach Tuck, was the 2 fly, the mile, 400 IM, and 1,000. Are you kidding me? That is the worst lineup ever.
That's a core though.
Ever.
Once you are in 2 fly, you do the rest of it. It's just the core. I did that.
Yeah.
2 fly, 4 IM, 800, 1,500. That's the core.
It's horrid. My second and third, I only swam 3 years. My second and third years, because I graduated a year early, I did the 100 fly instead of 4 IM. So that was like a little bit better because it's like 300 less yards you have to swim. But like, it was brutal. So my groups that I was in, like for training, I was in the fly group and I was in the distance free group. Yeah. Which are like the 2 worst groups imaginable, like and the highest yardage.
But then when you do those events, like, you know, you'll hit probably 1 or 2 hit instead of like 30 of 200 free.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, I mean like, and I enjoyed my events. I'm not saying I like to hate on them, but like Rocktober was like horrid. And it was also awful because a lot of times like we would stay after the fly group and the distance free group would stay after because our sets were freaking long. Like, so we were still, we're still in the pool and the freaking sprint kids are getting out and going to shower. I'm like, this is awful, like terrible. But I think also like that kind of like two things. Like, one, you come to appreciate everybody's unique skill. Because I'm like, I'd rather swim the 1650 than the 50 free any day.
Yeah.
Because I'm horrible at 50 free. I, like, can't build up speed fast enough. And so I'm like, I don't want to swim the 50 free, so like, if this is what I have to do, this is what I have to do.
And for 50 free, there's no room for you to, fix a mistake if you, dive in slow or anything like that.
Yeah, exactly.
You have 20 seconds to do everything you can.
Yes. So like the mile, the 1,000, like those are so much more forgiving events. And so I'm like, I'll take it. But it also, like, those people that I was in the distance group and the fly group with, like, it kind of becomes like you're all suffering together.
Yes.
And so it becomes this, like, you're like, dang. And I think, like, the biggest thing, being in, like, your specialized groups, I think that was one of the biggest, like, training things compared to peak or being in, like, age group swimming is, like, you swim everything. And you, like, when you're training, like, with Coach John, we did free, we did back, we did free, we did IM, we did fly, we did free. So, like, having to do fly almost every single day or every other day, depending on which days I was doing distance, like, that was new for me. So, like, it's definitely more challenging and you're now more specialized. Mm-hmm. Where I did an ungodly amount of fly in college compared to what I did on peak. But, I mean, that's how, like, I had never swam a sub-minute 100 fly until college. I truly don't think if I had done as much, like, I never would have gotten there. So, like, it's worth it. Like, I also, like, those were the two events that, like, I got personal bests in, were the 2 fly and the 1 fly, like, during college, that we worked really hard to, like, get a sub-minute 100 fly, and then I dropped time on 2 fly. So, like, by the end, I was, like, happy with where I finished. I was glad. And, like, it was worth it. But it was just, the training was definitely brutal. It was brutal.
Yeah, no, like once you are a distance swimmer, you feel the pain.
Yes.
Every single day.
Yeah.
And not just in water, like the dry land and everything as well. You do heavier stuff,
Yeah.
Drag it out. You don't do short and explosive, dry land.
Right.
You more like building your stamina.
Yes. Yeah. Well, yeah, and that was the other thing too. Like, a lot of times when we would start tapering, the sprint group, as far as like weight training in the weight room, they would move down to lighter weights before we would. Because the distance group and the fly group, they're like, basically you're doing strength until the last minute. Yeah. And not to say we were like doing like 1 rep max. It wasn't anything like that. But it's just like they started kind of coming down before we did.
Yes.
So.
Yeah.
It was just crazy.
But always fun. Like those big events, I love that. Especially, I mean, two flies my entire career.
Yeah.
I always remember 1 year, I think it was 15, 16, I do 10, 200 fly. I'm the only one doing that set that day. Yeah. Everyone else either free or IM. Right. So I don't have my lane.
Yeah.
So the coach slide me into the free group, like, hey, try to hang with them. Take a break if you need. Do 9 200 minimum. So I can skip one if I need.
Right.
I didn't skip it.
Really?
I just feel great. I feel special that day.
Yeah.
So I'm just like try to power it with the free group. Yeah. They were 10 200 on 240 or something like that.
And that's crazy.
I hold it on 228, 229.
Coach, look, that's insane.
It was long course.
That's impressive.
It was long course. Yeah.
I think another thing though, along with that, is like a lot of times if we would have choice, like in the warm up, or like if there was a set where it was like such and such as choice, I think that's a big thing about being a flyer or a breaststroker is not being lazy and picking to do flyer or breast.
Yeah.
And that was something that like I was really kind of like gung-ho about, especially in college. Like if there was choice, I would do fly.
So one thing I want to ask here, when you do fly and when you go to college and your entire career, have you ever like changed your strokes at all on your fly, or you feel like it pretty stable throughout the years?
I think it's hard for me to remember, but I don't remember making any major change.
Okay.
I think the biggest thing for me was stroke count.
Okay.
Because that was the thing, like, and I mentioned this earlier in our conversation, like 9 was my number. Like I took 9 butterfly strokes. The first 25 to 2 flies, sometimes it was 8 if I had really powerful underwaters. Right. But for the most part, it was 9 every single 25. And I think that was the biggest thing that, like, sometimes when you're in the set, it feels like you're just trying to, like, survive the fly set. But I remember, like, in college, my coach being so, like, gun-ho about you need to know your stroke count every 25, even if we're doing, like you're saying, if we're doing repeats or if we're doing longer distances or it's on a tougher interval, like you have to hit that 9 every single time. Because like we were talking about this earlier, like you can't fix your stroke until you're exhausted and you're under pressure and your fly is dying and you're like drowning. Yeah. Because if you're not at that point, there's nothing like, I can do 9 strokes when I'm like fresh and just got in the pool. Yeah. But like when you're at the end of a 3,000 yard set and you've been doing you know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like you have to still be able to hold the 9 strokes. Yeah. Because that's what the 2 fly is. Yeah. Your last 50.
No, your third moment.
The third 50, the last, like you have to be able to hold that stroke count the whole time the same way you did at the very beginning, or else it's just a horrible 2 fly. Yes. Yeah, and I think that was the biggest thing, was like, I don't think my stroke necessarily changed, but I think my training changed to where like it went from just like having good technique and like not dying to like, no, like exact, like this needs to be 9 strokes. I need a hit and I need a, you know, or like he would even have us train like my 9 strokes and then 4 dolphin kicks. Yeah. Was my 2 fly number was 4. Right. So like, because that's the other thing is like by the end, there are swimmers on the 2 fly that like barely do 1 dolphin kick because they're so dead. Yeah. So, but it's like, if you're training that way, I think that was the biggest thing that changed for me is like, it's less about doing 8 laps and more about doing 8 laps that are the exact same. Yes. And I think that's really the main thing that changed.
And especially for fly, it's way easier to hold your rhythm and pace. That's why I see, you know, when people try to get pace on breaststroke, the pacer normally do fly instead of free. Yeah. Because fly, you know, you have your rhythm going and it's so easy to stroke count, just maintain it.
Yeah. And I think that was the other thing too, is like, my underwaters carried me. I think like
I feel that.
I think you and I both, we have similar builds, but like my like legs are way more muscular than my upper body has ever been. And like that carried me. Yes. Was the underwaters. Yeah. Because it's almost like a rest period where I'm like, if I can just get underwater, like I'm going to be okay on this 2 fly. And I think something that really affected that was Coach John's necessity for a kick set every single day. And that was something like coming into college, like I already had a really good aerobic base from like the gold sets we did under Coach John, but also from those kick sets. Because I might be like, there was several girls that were faster than me in butterfly on my college team. I wasn't the fastest flyer, but when we were doing underwater work, I would out underwater them. Yeah. And I think that's like the biggest thing was like having the aerobic foundation, but also the like kicking ability. Because that's the first thing to go in fly, is people are muscling themselves up with their arms. And if you don't have your kick, like it's over. It's over.
And when you don't have your kick and your kick going down and your body turns vertical, you're not going anywhere. Yeah. 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 And that's why every time I talk to kids that, you know, first time doing 100 fly or starting doing 200 fly, I'm like, when you get tired, keep your legs up. Yeah. Don't just try to drag yourself to the finish line. You're not gonna get there. No. Get your hips up, get your kicks up, and you know, try to lean forward. You're gonna make it there.
Yeah. Yeah. It's same thing in 4 a.m. If you don't have good legs in 4 a.m., you're gonna die. Yeah, because you're gonna absolutely die. Because
you burn everything in your fly, and then your backstroke, you just try to catch your breath, and you just dead in the water.
Yeah. That was another thing is I was one of the only people on my college team that knew back to breast crossover. Oh. And I think that was another reason why I did pretty well in the 4 a.m. because I'm not a very good breaststroker or backstroker. But I think because I had the really good kicking foundation, especially for backstroke. Yes. Coming into backstroke off of butterfly, my backstroke's not great, but I can just kick. Yeah. And I'm like, if I can kick, do my back to breast crossover turn, like I can still
It saves you like 2 seconds at least.
Yes. Time. Yeah. So I'm like, as long as I have the kick and the turn, like that's really. Yeah. It wasn't that I was a great IMer. It was that I can do turns well and I have the kick. Yes, that's it.
Yes. Yes. So always great. Yes. Yeah. So I mean, it's great having you here.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's nice catching you at the net still. You know, after all this time.
Yes.
Yeah. So again, thank you for your time, and hopefully in the future, you know, we can have you here with your other college or other coach for. Some other topic and interesting conversation.
Yeah, that would be awesome. Yeah, that would be so fun. Yeah, thanks, Coach Tuck.
And for you guys, leave a comment and a like if you enjoy the content. Thank you.